Hi, my name is Josh Johnson. I'll be going over the muscle fiber type composition assessments. First, I'll go over a little bit about the muscle physiology that is incorporated in our body, and then I'll go over a little about the specific muscle fibers that we use voluntarily. Then I will go into the actual assessments, indirect and direct, to figure out what fibers our body is made up of. First, I'll do the muscle physiology. Okay, so first, muscle physiology. We first have three different types of muscles in our body. First, we have the cardiac muscle. This is the muscle that's in the walls of our hearts. Second, we have our smooth muscles, which are consisted of blood vessels, the stomach, the intestines, and the bladder. These first two muscles are mostly involuntary for us. We cannot voluntarily contract them. For our third type, the skeletal muscles, they are our functional and voluntary muscles that are attached to our bones. We have full capacity to use these however we would like. Uh, the main comparisons between all these muscles is that they are all based on the myosin cross bridges and contractibility. And they also all use ATP as a fuel and energy source, but they all consume ATP and produce ATP at different rates and can also produce ATP through different systems. Okay, so for the skeletal muscles, we break down in two different categories. We go to slow twitch fibers, which are the type 1 fibers, and we go to fast twitch fibers, which are type 2 fibers. Then the fast twitch fibers can be broken down into two different fibers themselves. Fast twitch fibers type 2A and type 2B. The slow twitch fibers are a much more slow contractile unit, but they also are more of an aerobic capacity, so they are less likely to fatigue as quick. Fast twitch fibers are very fast contracting, but they can also fatigue very quickly. So the slow twitch fibers are more for endurance athletes, and the fast twitch fibers are for the high power output and explosive activities. The reason for these capacities of these muscle fibers is because of the mitochondrial density and the capillary density. This is their ability to hold as much oxygen and blood in the muscle as possible. For the slow twitch fibers, they both have a high mitochondrial and capillary density. But for the type 2A, they also have a high mitochondrial content, but their capillary is not that high. And for the fast twitch type 2B, they have very low of all of it, so they fatigue very quickly. But then when you're looking at the size differences in these muscles on a human body, the slow twitch fibers are really going to be more of a smaller, more petite hypertrophy. But your fast twitch fibers are the ones that you usually see grow in a more high performance explosive activity. For the slow twitch fibers are more for runners, and that's why they don't have quite the bulk. Next, I'll go into a little bit about the muscles and how the body actually uses these as a whole and not just as an individual basis. Okay, now a little bit more in depth into the mechanism of use of these type 1 and 2 muscle fibers. For one, one muscle fiber is not used in one body part. There will be a combination of all three of these muscles in a particular muscle. Like the quad muscle is made up of type 1 and type 2 muscle fibers. But it really depends on what the daily usage of this muscle is, of what the makeup and the percentage or the ratio of these muscles are. Um, and also, one muscle fiber, type 1 or type 2, is not just used at one point in time. So you just can't, as we say, isolate just to use one type of fiber, type 1, or just use a type 2 fiber. They are all used at one time. This is called an all or none principle. It's when all three types are used at the same time. There's a mixture of each muscle being used. And again, this depends on the stimulus and the motivation of the person that they put forth in between it and the degree of power that is used to move the certain amount of weight. Okay, now going on along the same lines of how our muscles are used in each individual body, also we are all unique in the amount of muscle that we have in our body. Normally, the normal ratio of fast twitch fibers to slow twitch fibers are going to be 60 to 40%. But this ratio, again, depends on the activity level and the intensity level of the individual on hand. Um, no one person has the same makeup of muscle fiber composition. We all have all three types, but there's different amounts in our body, and also there's different amounts in each portion of our body. Like someone may have a 40 to 60 fast twitch to slow twitch ratio in their quads, and one person may have that 60 to 40 ratio in their body. So for everyone, it's going to be different. It just depends on their activity levels, their intensity levels, and what sort of workouts they're doing. This can be explained as an endurance athlete and a high power athlete. An endurance athlete is going to have more of a ratio of the type 1 fibers because they're more slow twitch and they're more anaerobic. So their muscle mass is not going to be quite as large. But if, per se, a intermediate runner slash lift weight resistance person, they're going to have a semi good build. And then when you go to a full on high explosive, low rep, high weight individual, their muscle capacities are going to be much higher with type 2 B fibers because of the style of workout they're doing. As this slide also says, it really depends on the activity of choice for the type of fibers that your body is going to have. The last slide just gave a little bit more of a visual accuracy of what type of person and build they would have for the type of muscle fibers they had. Again, the endurance runners, the ones that do 5 or plus more minutes, are going to have a higher ratio of type 1 fibers, and the high intensity are more anaerobic, so they're going to have more type A. Okay, so someone may come up to you and ask you, why would we even bother doing a muscle fiber composition test? The basic theory behind a muscle composition test is just to figure out what type of muscle fibers that particular body part is made up of, say our legs, our chest, or our back. We want to figure out if that body part is majority of type 1 muscle fibers or majority of type 2 muscle fibers. What this can tell us is that how we can actually train our muscles after figuring out what we actually have in our body. So with this test, it tells us what the ratio of muscle fibers are. It lets us know the capabilities of our muscles and allows us to have specific training to help give the ability to improve our performance using the correct training protocols to give us our highest athletic or individual performance that we can output. Okay, so now I'll get into the actual testing for muscle fiber composition assessments. Our first one is called direct testing. This is the direct measure of figuring out what type of muscle is in our body part, say our quadriceps. What this is, it's called an actual needle biopsy test. What they do is they actually stick a hollow needle in your particular muscle that you're looking at, and they suck out a piece of muscle from it. They take that muscle, they put it underneath the microscope, and they look at the actual characteristics of the muscle to figure out if you have a more of type 1 or more of a type 2 muscle body. With this direct testing, it is very invasive, obviously, since you're sticking a large gauge needle in your body, and then it is also very painful to take something out like that before or after. There's a video on YouTube, but I advise you it is a little graphic because you are sticking a needle in someone's body. Our next method of choice is called the indirect testing. This is a much more popular testing for muscle fiber composition because the direct testing is very invasive and very painful. The indirect testing is just putting forth effort from the subject. It looks at the relationship between different properties of the fiber types and the muscle composition that is tested. Basically, it looks at the strength and the power being capable of the muscle. It's based off of a 1 rep max, which is the amount of weight that one person can lift for a certain exercise with proper form. A 1 rep max is not really meant for smaller body parts like arms or calves. It's really meant for chest, back, and legs. This is due to the amount of intensity and power that one needs to put forth in this exercise. You only need a few things to perform these exercises. All you need is a weight room, either a bench, a squat rack, or a platform. You need a standard 20 kilogram Olympic barbell, some weight plates between 5 and 45 pounds, a spotter for help, um, bar ends or clips, and it's optional for a back belt, powder for grip, but there's no straps allowed. The type of exercises that will be used in this indirect testing are usually the bench press, the squat, and the deadlift. The platform is for the deadlift. Again, proper form must be advised in these workouts because the amount of intensity and power that needs to be used, and it can get pretty dangerous for the subject. Okay, so for the first half of our indirect testing, we'll be doing the 1 rep max. What this basically is you're going to find how much weight one can move for 1 rep with proper form. What you're going to start off with a slight warm up, and then you'll end up doing 15 reps with a weight that you know you can do 20 to 25 with. Then you will drop 5 repetitions following a rest of 1 to 2 minutes with increasing weight, of course. So your sets are going to be a 15 rep, a 10 rep, and a 5 rep until you finally get down to 3 reps. After a 3 to 4 minute rest, you will then do 2 reps, and then again for another 3-minute rest, you'll do your final 1 rep max where it's an all out effort to move the weight at one time. And then you'll get a 15-minute break before you end up moving on to the second half of indirect testing. Okay, now that we have our 1 rep max, we can now move on to the final half of the muscle fiber assessment. After figuring out the 1 rep max, you will now take 80% of the weight, so take 20% of that weight off, and the person will now perform the same exercise as many times as possible, but with proper form. The spotter or another recorder will record the amount of reps done and then figure out the muscle composition based on the 3 separate tables that are on the next slide. So perform this 80% weight as many times as possible and compare it to the 3 graphs. Now all 3 of these exercises can be done in one day, but it's highly recommended to have a good waiting period in between these. So you can do your bench press, then wait 15-20 minutes so you can get full recovery, then do your squat with the 1 rep max, then going down to your 80%, and then you can take another rest after that, 15-20 minutes, and do your final deadlifting fiber composition assessment. But make sure you're taking a quality rest in between, or else your body will be much more fatigued. But it is also recommended to take a day or 2 in between these so your body can recover and you can get the full power out of your muscles. Okay, this slide shows 3 separate tables due to separate researchers. But the first one is based off of the common numbers that are used nowadays. So if you did less than 7 reps, your muscle body, your chest, your legs, or your back is made up of more than 50% fast twitch fibers. If you did 7 to 12 reps, you have an equal portion, let's say 50-50 proportion of your type 1 to type 2 fibers. But if you did more than 12 reps, you have more of a ratio of 50% slow twitch fibers. So with your fast twitch fibers, you have more of anaerobic power, and for slow twitch fibers, you have more of aerobic power. So you're able to do low weight with higher reps. But for the when you have greater fast twitch fibers, you're able to do lower reps and greater weight. The next 2 tables are it tells you the same thing. It just gives you a little bit different numbers for the amount of reps that you performed at your 80% max. Okay, so after figuring out what sort of proportion you have for fast twitch and slow twitch fibers, you can now figure out what type of actual workout program you can use to utilize the type of muscle fibers that are present in your particular body part. Anyone can actually undergo a 1 rep max test and then perform the multiple rep set. But it is usually used for athletes to improve on performance to get their performance highest and the quickest as possible. But anyone can perform these tests. Just make sure you have a spotter and quality equipment while doing these procedures and exercises. Okay, so I mentioned this a little bit before, but if someone has more fast twitch muscle fiber, they're more dominant in that fiber, they're not capable of performing as many reps at the 80% max. They should use heavier loads and low repetitions in their training. But individuals with slow twitch fibers that are capable of getting higher reps than the 80% max, they have more fast twitch fibers. So meaning they have a slow group, and they react better to lighter loads and higher repetition. And this doesn't have to be used for athletes. It can also be used for personal trainers and clients. Personal trainers can perform these tests so that they can help their clients succeed in their physical goals as quick as possible. There is an actual research on some muscle fiber composition assessments. This is a needle biopsy test used on hammer throwers. Down below, there's a YouTube video showing who hammer throwers actually are. But for this research, they did use the direct measurement, the muscle biopsy needle test, to analyze the right vastus lateralis muscle. It showed that throwers have a larger muscle mass of type 2 fibers and a low percentage of type 1 fibers. And this is mainly due to the high explosive and muscular power that is needed for these hammer throwers in their workouts and performing. Okay, so after figuring out one's muscle fiber composition, now it's down to the training. You have to know that muscles do not change from slow twitch fibers to fast twitch fibers, or vice versa. Training can change the amount of area taken up by the fiber type in a muscle, meaning hypertrophy of either type 1 or type 2 muscle, but they cannot change in appearance or the amount of actual muscle that's there. Training for high intensity with with heavier loads and lower reps, the slow twitch fibers will atrophy and the fast twitch fibers will grow in size and strength. The opposite will happen when training low weight with high reps or for endurance training. The type 2 fibers will take over and hypertrophy over the type 2 muscle fibers, meaning for a much leaner physique, if you might want to say. Alright, so that is my presentation on muscle fiber composition assessment for indirect and direct testing. It helps you figure out what type of muscles are in your body and how we are able to work with them to improve our performance. And as this quote says, better performance is all about understanding one's body and maximizing it to its highest potential. And this is what these assessments will do for you. They will give you a reading of what your body is made up of, and then you could use it to the best of your ability in your training processes. Thank you very much. This is Muscle Fiber Composition Assessments and Josh Johnson. Thank you.